Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct. And what we've done is gone out to create a place where people can connect through affinity relationships and create common bonds. And we're excited about putting together different content to help alumni out, whether it's could be colleges, it could be fraternities, sororities, or in this case, athletes. And we're finding that we want to create that positive content that can really give value to these athletes. And with this show, the idea behind it is to teach and inspire athletes that there is life after sports. And today we're really excited. We have Coach Chris Michel on with us. And he's got a great background. Basically, he was a football player growing up. He went to Illinois. He was a walk-on, which we're excited to hear more about that because it's pretty powerful when you hear some of those stories. And then he had 30 plus years of sales experience, high level, running companies. Now he's also an author, which another thing we'll talk about. It's funny, Coach. I want to be an author someday. I think everybody says you got to do it. So I don't know when, but I'll do it at some point. And then finally, he's also an entrepreneur running his own business. So welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Fantastic, Rob. Thanks for having me. Love being here. So yeah, it's
my pleasure. It's great. We're doing this on a Friday night, so both of us are ready to start this nice Memorial Day weekend. But what a great way to start. So this is very, like I said before, kind of informal. We ask a lot of fun questions and just make it interactive. But like I said, we really want to make an impact on athletes. So the first question is, tell me about growing up and your life playing sports leading up to college.
so growing up, I grew up with two brothers. I'm the middle child, and my older and younger brother, we were only 2 years apart. So we would typically be able to play a lot of sports together, and we were encouraged to do that. And we played basketball and football and baseball. And I mean, we did all the normal, if you will, kids things. And so when we grew up, we were just always around sports. In fact, when I was in high school, I actually played three sports during the school year, and then I played baseball in the summer.
Wow.
So I did football, basketball, and track. And then when I went into the summer, if I wasn't working with my dad doing landscaping, then we were playing baseball.
Wow, that's a lot of sports. You got to like that. And I mean, do you think did sports have an impact, kind of shaping your personality and shaping your drive and everything else? Again, leading up to that whole going through school and into college.
Absolutely. I mean, I really enjoyed sports, and aside from growing up working for my dad, it built that ability, that work ethic, if you will, in me and my brothers. And so going into sports with that same kind of mentality and mindset, you just worked hard. You just knew that that's what it took. You didn't take days off, and you didn't get injured, quote unquote, right? So you did what you needed to do to make it to the next level, to the next game, to the next whatever, right? And so that was kind of something that just pushed us along all throughout our lives.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, I've talked to so many different athletes and in all different sports, and it's that common thread. It's a lot of sacrifice and dedication. I'm sure there's things that you probably wanted to do growing up in high school and social life that sometimes you really couldn't do it. I mean, I kind of experienced a little of that myself.
Yeah. Well, and when you're playing three sports year round, right, your evenings till about 7 o'clock are really tied up, right? Then you come home, you do homework, you go to bed. Well, and then I was also working by the time I was probably a sophomore in high school. I started working a job, right? So I was tied up on the weekends. If I wasn't playing sports, I was working at a restaurant or, things like that. So yeah, it was just kind of our childhood, right? And you look back and you go, do you regret it? No, I don't regret it. It was just part of life. That's what we knew, right? And we
Right.
get trained, we just kind of, that's the story that we tell ourselves, and that's the mindset that we have, right? Is, hey, I've always got to be doing this, or I've always got to be doing that. So it's a different life now, right?
Sure.
And years later, I understand what it means to work
Yeah.
and play hard, right? And you just learn to relax, and you learn to take the time that you need to take care of you. Back when I was younger, you just went until you kind of fell out at night. I think my bedtime was, I mean, it was self-imposed, probably
Right.
9:30,
Wow.
right? I mean, because I was up and I had to go to school by 7:30. And, it's just, you're so tired from the physical exhaustion and doing all that stuff. It was just a lot. So, but
Right.
again, I don't regret it. It was one of those things you just go, well, that was my life. That's what I chose to do at that time.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is what I always ask people is that as growing up, did you dream about being a professional athlete? And what, and if so, like what sport?
Yeah, for about 5 minutes. And well, so here's this, you'll appreciate the way this ties in. So I walked on to the University of Illinois. I was told, in fact, I was told at the end of my senior year, our football team didn't do very well. We went over, and we were projected to do very well because we had, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, I think, returning starters. And so there were a number of us, and things happen, right? We had injuries, and I was one of them, but there were a couple of us that got injured. We missed a week or two here and there. The next thing you know, we didn't win a game all season. So at the end of the year, we had a conference with our coaches, individual conference. And, they're like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? I was like, I want to play football. I want to play Big Ten football. And they were like, yeah, you're not going to do that. You need to find out something else. Right. And I kind of took that as a jab, and I said, hold my beer. Right. It's one of those hold my beer experiences.
Yeah.
But I was like, watch me. And so I took it upon myself. I only applied to the University of Illinois. I walked on at the University of Illinois, and was invited to come to play on the football team. And when I did that, the things that I learned from doing that, and the experiences of all that was amazing. Fast forward to, I think it was probably 85, 86. And Dick Buckus, former University of Illinois graduate as well, came to speak to us at halftime. And I remember this very vividly. He came to talk to us, and he was hobbling. Now, this is 84. I mean, the guy played 20 years prior to that, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, he'd been through a lot, right? And now he's older, and I just noticed him struggling walking. And I remember watching him walk in, listening to the speech and him talking to us. And I said to myself at that point, I said, if I play pro football, I'm only going to do it for a few years.
Right.
Because I don't, no offense to Dick and anybody else prior to him, they went through a lot. Their bodies were just abused.
Oh, battered. Yeah.
And they grew up in a different era than even I did back in the 80s. But then, fast forward to today, and the things that the kids and all are doing, and the athletes are going through with their bodies and stuff now. But I do remember that was something very profound in my mind and in my life at that point was, if I do play pro, I'm only going to do it for a couple of years so I can walk away from that. Right.
Right.
And it became very clear as time went on, the next couple of years, I was like, this isn't for me. I mean, it'd be great to go and try and play pro, but I was like, yeah, I'm just not good enough. And I was okay with that.
Right.
And so I only played 4 out of my 5 years. I had a 5th year because I redshirted my first year, but I opted not to play my senior year, my 5th year. And
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for me, like I joke around all the time. I say when I was a kid, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. Unfortunately, talent pool wasn't there. But I do think back to I was a runner in college, and I remember getting hurt my sophomore year, and kind of I guess in a similar thing. I just felt like, do I want to keep going, or do I, in my mind, do I want to be able to someday be able to run around with my kids and stuff like that? And I chose part 2 there, and
sure.
I run today. Still, I was able to get back into it, but like not at the competitive level, which I think might have deteriorated my knees. So so now we talk a little more about walking on, because it's a pretty powerful story. I was telling you offline, we're talking a little about it. I've listened to some podcasts of these football players that have done that. Just take us through that experience.
So, like I said, I only applied to the University of Illinois, and I made my intentions known. All right, we contacted the folks there. I had been looked at when I played high school football by a number of Division II or Division III. Back then it was Division I, Division II, Division III, and there were a number of Division II and Division III schools that were coming to watch me play and that kind of stuff. And I'm sure because of the school, it was the Upstate 8. Gosh, what do you call it? Not the region, but anyways, that was the league that we played in. It was called the Upstate 8. Anyway, that was still a very large kind of schools that were playing in this, right? So these were all what they called 5 or 6A schools, which were the larger schools. My school had like 2,500 students in it.
That's pretty big.
So yeah, so I mean, back in the 80s, that was kind of a big deal, but that was the size of the schools that we were playing against, right? So pretty talented schools, pretty talented pool of people that they're coming from, right? And so there was a lot of exposure, if you will, to the schools and around the area and that kind of stuff. So like I said, I applied to the University of Illinois and I told, I believe we made a phone call or whatever was appropriate at the time. We reached out to them and let them know I was interested in coming down, and they said, you're welcome to come down and do this, and here are the dates and all that other stuff. And so I did, and I got to go through the process of walking on. And at the time, I mean, we could have like 100, 110 people on the team. Only a certain number of them were scholarship, right? They could only have so many scholarships, much like today. And I don't know what it's like today. I don't know how many they can suit up, or they could only put so many on the sidelines, right? Even for a home game, they could only suit up so many people. They couldn't field the whole team, right? So to speak. So it was a really cool experience. But you know, that process, I walked on to a major university, one of the Power 5 schools, you know, Power 5, again, the Power 5 group that you know, was at the time the Big Ten, and they had Cap Bosa was a huge tight end at the time. Right before him was Tim Brewster. I didn't play with Tim, but Tim went on to play professional football. Cap went on to play professional football with the Bears, and I think Indianapolis as well. The quarterback at the time was Jack Trudeau. The running back, Thomas Rooks, and David Williams was a receiver. I mean, I got to play with these guys, Jim Jariga and Mark, I can't remember his last name, but there were a lot of just guys like that were playing. And then we had on the defensive side, we had Mike Heaven and Craig Swoop and Bobby Sebring. And I mean, all these guys they went into they went on to play NFL football, right? For a number of years.
That's great.
Yeah. And so I'm playing around these guys and seeing them all the time. And well, so back to the story, Cap Bosa's the tight end. They recruited the number one tight end in the nation at the time, which his name is Anthony Williams. And they also had a couple of other guys. And then Mike White, who was the coach at the time, was really strong in recruiting junior college transfers from California. So they pick up this guy named Jerry Reese. They bring in Anthony Williams. They bring in, right, another guy transfers from another guy transfers from the basketball team. He was banging up his back and his knees on the basketball court. So he transfers in. Jeff Finke, he comes in, becomes another tight end, does a phenomenal job, right? He transfers from a basketball scholarship to a football scholarship, right? And so I'm amongst these giants, and I don't mean height-wise. I mean, these guys are kind of legendary, right? That I'm playing with. And I'm just happy to be on the team. And I decided at that point, I really wanted to contribute. I just wanted to be a part of the team. And I played special teams. Most of the time I played special teams, but man, what an experience to be able to go and just say, I want to give and do what I can. And so I was on the prep squad, and I did everything I could on the prep squad to make sure that the defense was there and ready to do what they could do, right? To be the best that they could be. And so I like to say that I had a hand in that.
Well, that's good. Did you end up getting to a scholarship, or you just like walked on?
Nope. No, I was a walk on, and that was part of my decision making for not playing my last year. Was, you know what, I'm not on scholarship. I'm not going to go any further with this. Yeah. I'm good, and I really enjoyed my time at Illinois, playing on the football team, the camaraderie. I still am in touch with a number of the guys, and you know, it's not like we're all BFFs and hanging out every weekend, but I'm in communication with a number of these folks, and it's good to see them and talk to them every once in a while, see how they're doing and just where they're at and what's going on.
That's great. That was kind of leading into one of the things we talked a little bit about before, that there's definitely that camaraderie with athletes, and especially, you know, you're playing on the same team. So you do have some alumni alumni connections with them. And again, it's probably changed now, but is there any push from Illinois to have former athletes, alumni come back and kind of talk and work with the current athletes that are there?
That's a great question. I'm not gonna say they don't. I know that they do, because I'm on the chat boards on Facebook and other places. But yeah, I know that they make a push to have the alumni come back. They give us opportunity to go to the spring games, to homecoming, to other games. They invite us to go back and set us up with tours and all that kind of stuff. I live in Atlanta, so I'm a little bit further away. I'm probably a 10 or 11-hour drive
Right.
away from there. But the long and short of it is, there's an opportunity that I could, if I went back, I could go back and, mingle with them, have conversations with them, and potentially even have the conversations with them and encourage them. But I know some of the bigger names, the Chris Greens and the Henry Joneses, and I mean some of the other folks that were a little bit more prominent than I was. I know that they have opportunity to go back and have these conversations and really inspire this next generation of students that are coming through.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's a lot of what we're trying to do is we're trying to facilitate those alumni connections. So whether it be in community centers or schools, or the more that I kind of delve into this whole thing with the athlete transition, it is a major issue. And we'll kind of talk more about that. But I think it helps with the alumni. I've heard some stories of where, some of these athletes want to go back to their school and they're kind of pushed to the side, which is kind of a shame, because I think there's so much to be learned. And it's interesting too, when you talk about networking. I was talking to a sports agent, and he said that what he sees as kind of a failure is that a lot of these athletes, the best time for them to network and connect is when they're playing, whether it be in college or whether it be at the professional level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would be great. I don't know, because again, I don't remember everything back from when I was in college, but I'm sure there were opportunities. Like I said, I got to meet some of the former players. I got to meet Tony Eason and throw and catch with him, right? And um, uh, Tim Brewster and some of those other guys that I was talking about. But I got to meet some of them when I was there, right? There during the summer times, they'd come in, or in the spring when they were in their off season, they'd come in and they'd throw balls and that kind of stuff. So it was nice to have those interactions and have those conversations, right? But again, you're right. I think it'd be great to have those conversations with former alum for the present students. If they want to have those, in tips and tricks and things that they could
Right.
learn. I know a number of the guys that one of the guys, Stephen Pierce, he's with the NFLPA in San Diego, and he still works very closely with obviously a lot of the players, and former and current, right? So I mean, he's still involved in a lot of that stuff. So a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, one of the big topics now is, NIL and, the name, image, likeness. Give me kind of what your thoughts are.
I wish I would have been available at the time. Well, it's interesting because I was a walk-on, so I never received a scholarship or anything, right? I didn't receive any assistance, and so it's a challenge for me because I basically paid my way. And I'm
Right.
not saying that student athletes shouldn't be paid. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have that opportunity, especially now with all the likenesses and the games. And I'm a video game player. I've got my Xbox, right? I enjoy playing the NCAA, football games and that kind of
Right.
stuff. But you know, the unfortunate thing is the corporate world is taking advantage of a situation that they know they're taking advantage of, and they're not allowing these, for lack of a better term, these young student athletes, right, men and women, to participate in the funding or the money that is coming in because of their caricatures, right? Their likeness being used, right? Their skills and abilities, right, all being used for these games. And it's like, come on, guys, that's really not fair to
Right.
these young athletes, right? So absolutely, they should be compensated in some way, shape, or form. So how do you do that, right? And then you can get into a whole big debate, right, as to
Yeah.
when they should be compensated, how they should be compensated,
Right.
that looks like, how does that happen, right? All of that stuff. Because you and I both probably know entrepreneurs that are 12 or 16 years old making millions.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's true. And it's interesting. One of the guys I talked to, a former NFL player, and he likes it, and obviously wishes it was when he was playing. But the one thing he brought up a good point is this: his concern about athletes not knowing what to do and how to handle it, because all of a sudden you might have this athlete making this big money and not understanding that you need to pay taxes on it and all that. So I think there's definitely need to help to coach and cultivate these young athletes on how to do it. And like some of what my thoughts are within what we're trying to do even on our platform is to give them that area to help promote it, but um, amongst alumni, and also just having I guess having the resources there for them or for alumni athletes to kind of tap into to help them manage that whole process that they might not be familiar with.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I think that's one of the things that's probably really lacking in total from the education system, if you will, high school, college, whatever. How do you, again, when you get into these situations, how do you handle it? I would imagine the NFLPA and others like them help these athletes when they get into situations where they're making all this money, that they teach them how to, what to do or how to handle that.
Right.
And some people take direction and others don't, right?
Right.
And at 20 something years of age and I'm getting millions of dollars, I may not listen either, right? I can
Right.
appreciate where they're coming from, but at the same time, is there somebody there that can kind of walk them through that, right? And all of a sudden you're making a bunch of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars at least, right? And you're starting to get the endorsements and all these other things. And what do you do and how do you handle it, right? And I've met a couple of guys even here recently that they admitted, man, I wish I would have had this. I wish I would have had this conversation. I wish I would have had this understanding. I wish I would have learned more about this when I was younger, right? And I think we're all there in some way, shape, or form, right? I wish I would have learned
Yeah.
more about this or that, right? I wish I would have learned more about financial literacy and things of that nature. And it's not that you don't know how to handle money. It's that what do you do with it once you get it, right? And
Yeah.
there's smart
No.
ways to handle it, and there's not so smart ways to handle it.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a challenge. So, kind of fast forwarding now a little bit. So you finish up with school, and this is something that's become pretty important to me, is that this whole athlete transition. And I did a show with a sports psychologist, and they have a study called the athletes transition study, which is I think phenomenal. They're trying to get athletes that played any sport at the collegiate level and beyond, and to understand the impact in some of the different things so they can help. It's almost like you think about some of these like concussion protocols and things like that. But talk about your transition from being an athlete and putting all that time and effort and again the practice and all, to now all of a sudden you've graduated and now you're in the real world.
So transitioning to a non-athletic background was a difficult thing, right? Because sports becomes your life, especially when you're in college. It literally is your life 24/7 and 365. Now, back when I was in college, we couldn't practice as much as I think they have opportunity to today. And I'm not trying to take away from that, but I think there's a different mindset in that if you weren't playing football from the time that you're 7 now, you might as well give up, right?
Right.
And there's just that mindset of an athlete that you have to do this from the time that you're a very young age. So by the time you turn 22, 23 years old, you graduate college, and that particular part of your life is over. It's not really over,
Right.
but the dedication and everything that you've been doing may now shift, right? And it may shift into a different realm. One of the guys I played football with, a number of them actually went on to be coaches, right? And they played for a time, maybe in the NFL or the CFL or in different leagues. But there's a number of folks that I know that are now collegiate coaches or high school coaches or some sort of coach. So it's making that transition. And for me, when I graduated college, I kind of knew that piece of my life was done. It's not that I played volleyball for a number of years afterwards. I played pickup games of
Right.
football or basketball, or because I could play and I was decent enough at it. I wasn't somebody that was going to go and play in some league, but I could play basketball and I could play football and I could play volleyball and I could pick up and go play racquetball or whatever, right? I was athletic enough that I
Right.
could do these things. And so for a number of years, I played softball, I played whatever. But I remember very distinctly in my 40s, and it was probably 45 or so, where I just said, you know what, it's time for me to hang up my cleats. It's time for me to just be okay with not having to be an athlete right now, right?
Right.
And I remember very specifically just my uh, playing softball, week after week after week. And then I finally went, you know what, why am I doing this? Because every week I just feel sore, and I'm not, I'm not doing this on the regular. And I'm not that guy that's sitting out there crushing it over the fence anymore. And I'm not the guy who's running down the balls anymore. Right. I'm playing first base or pitcher now. Right. So, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I had to come to that conclusion, and I had to come to the realization of what was and wasn't important. And I enjoy playing sports, and I still exercise. I do hot yoga now. I do Bikram yoga. And
Your hair's
so
good for you.
it's, you know what, it's pretty amazing what yoga is, what it can do for you. But now put, the temperature between 107 and 111 degrees, right? And you're doing this for 90 minutes.
Wow.
And so, I get to do that now as a form of exercise, and I take walks, and right. I've never been a fan of running, but we talked about that before. But then the other thing is, like, I do cryotherapy, and I still do that kind of stuff because I have old injuries that are still around, and I do things that now are much more advanced than, the whirlpool tubs that we used to step into, and, step that were freezing cold, full of ice. Right. So there was a transition for me, and it was interesting watching the whole thing happen. But I do remember certain parts of my life and certain decisions that I made that I was kind of like, yeah, I think I'm ready to make the next step, and I'm okay with walking away. Right.
Right.
And I think we all get to a certain point in our lives where we say, this is still good for me, or this isn't good for me. And we have to make that decision ourselves. We can't have somebody telling us. Sometimes people get told, hey, Rob, you need to stop,
Right.
for your own good, you need to stop. And then some of us are lucky enough to go, you know what, it's time for me to stop.
Yeah. And that's, and everybody's got a different story with that. I think, um, the more I hear about it, I mean, it sounds like your transition, over time was great. And there's some people, unfortunately, the mental health issues and things like that some of these athletes face. And, you know, we're looking to align with different resources that help in that area. We talked a little about some of these other folks that I've been talking to, athlete transition coaches and things like that. So I think it's really important for athletes to understand that. In fact, I was talking to a coach, a college coach, and he just said he tries to implore on his athletes that listen, 0.000001% of the people make it to that maybe elite professional level. So, you're done with sports, and most athletes are probably done in their, teens or early 20s
Yeah.
and even late 20s. And I mean, you got a lot of life ahead of you. So, maybe give some advice to athletes out there, since you've had that successful transition. And we'll talk more about what you're doing today, but give them advice on maybe how to handle that transition and just to move forward and have that positive life experience and what they're doing in the future.
One of the things that I do with a lot of people now is help them to understand, because I'm a coach, I'm a business coach,
Okay.
and we'll talk about that in a second. But I get the opportunity to coach people, and one of the things that I stress time and time and time again is you have to learn to take care of yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally. You have to learn to take care of yourself, and we have to learn that. It's not something that we're just born with. We have to learn that. And I've been lucky enough to learn over the years what it means to truly take care of me, and more on the emotional side than anything else. A lot of us are taught to just be tough, and we've got to go
Right.
and go and go.
Yeah.
But to learn how to take care of yourself emotionally. um my younger brother died of suicide about 3.5 or 2.5 years ago, and that was really hard for me because I never suspected my brother dealt with any kind of mental health issues. And yet, here he did what he did, right? And it was like, ugh. So it was that point, and before that, but really that point for me was kind of a turning point where I went, this is super important. I really
Right.
need to look at, what am I doing? Where am I going? And all of that, right? So I would encourage, if you're listening to this as a younger student athlete, or maybe a 30 something athlete, take the time to learn about mental health and what that means for you, right? To be able to talk to people and express different things. And it's okay to feel feelings, and it's okay to go through those things. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't believe the lie that we were told for so long that, hey, we just got to be tough. And you do have to be tough as an athlete. Absolutely. You've got to work through some things, and our bodies are built different and our minds are different in the sense that we can handle a little bit more pain. But listen to your body and listen to your mind and listen
Yeah.
to those around you. And by doing that, you're going to what you said earlier, Rob, you're going to be able to walk away,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively. And that's okay. You're going to come to a point in your life where you can walk away. I look at the Nick Sabans of the world, and God love him. He's in his 70s. He's coaching,
He's still going. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
but he's still performing at a high level, and he's capable of doing that. But you got to know that he, at some point, he said, I need to transition from playing to coaching, right? I need to
Right.
go from this to this. And he's still able to do the things that he's able to do because he knew when to call it. He knew when to make the transition. And we all have to figure that out, right? Because our bodies are only able to handle so much. And mad props to Simone Biles, right? And
Yeah.
just at the Olympics going, you know what? I know this is the pinnacle of my
Yeah.
life, but I can't do this right now for whatever reason, right? And good for her and good for other athletes that are saying, hey, I can't do this right now. So just kind of take note, right? And listen to your body and listen to others and see what's right. Don't make excuses, but
Right.
at the same time, don't make excuses, right? Don't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's okay to wave the flag, so to speak. I mean, like she
Yeah.
did, because you're right. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and, sorry for your loss, and just to,
Yeah.
hear that kind of stuff. And I mean, I think we're all kind of exposed to some of that around us. And I think, hopefully getting advice and people, reaching out for help, it's really important. So we'll talk a little bit, because I joked around about in the beginning, but like writing a book. So talk about your book a little bit, and what it is to be an author.
But this book, so this is the book that I wrote. It's called The Red Chair Experience. And yes, the book, the chair on the book is mine, and I'm sitting in it. This is
There it
mine.
is, famous red chair, people. You
It
see
is the
there.
red chair. I got the opportunity to write a book, and it was really a number of things spawned this idea. I had been reading these daily inspirational type of books for a couple of years at this point. Like I said, my brother had just died in September of 19. 6 months later, we hit the pandemic, and now things are kind of shutting down. Well, a buddy of mine then sends me a meme in May of 2020, and it says, during this pandemic, if you're not working on your side hustle, trying to improve yourself, doing something different, right, and getting better, then it wasn't that you lacked time, you wasted your time, and it became very personal to me. So, like I said, when my brother died, that was kind of a, ooh, wait a minute, slow down, take a look around, what's going on. And I realized that I was unhappy with a number of things in my life. And I started going through therapy. I started having conversations with somebody to understand what was going on and what these things were that were, we call feelings. And so when I did all of that stuff in May of 2020, Buddy sends me the meme, and I go, you know what? Now's the time. It's time for me to write my book. And I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to write about. And I was reading these daily inspirational books, and I was like, maybe this is it. And I started with the idea that maybe I should just do a 30-day book, right? And 30 or 60 or 90 days, right? Let's just keep it simple. And it just kept going, and it kept going, and it kept going. And next thing you know, I'm at 180 days, right? And I'm like, I can do this. And I was like, let me get 366, right? Because of the leap year. But I was like, well, what if I do 400? Let's just shoot for, 366. But and so I just kept writing. And I remember, hitting 180 and then thinking, okay, it's downhill from here, right? It's almost all downhill from here. And then I was like, I hit a real low. And then a couple of other things happened in my life. My dad passed away. My grandson was born. I got hit with COVID pneumonia and was in the hospital for 7 days. And when I came out of that, it was in April of 2021. And I was like, I need to finish this. And I remember just kind of going full on. And I finished the book in November of 21, started going through the publishing process in December, and it got published at the end of March.
That's great. That's great. So is it on, where do you find it? Is it on Amazon? Is it?
So yeah, you can go to Amazon, anywhere in the world. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it at Barnes and Noble. You can buy it at Walmart, believe it or
Okay.
not.
Now, are you on Audible yet? Because for me, I like it with the crazy life I have.
Oh,
I tend to get it.
absolutely. Well, you're not the first to ask that. The physical book is available in paperback from, you can, if you want a signed copy, go to theredchairexperience.com, and
Okay.
we'll probably put all that together, but it's the Red Chair Experience, the title of the book.com. Go there, order your signed copy. I will send it to you. I'll sign it to you. I'll sign it to you personally and send it to you. And then if you don't care if it's signed or not, go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, whatever. The digital copy is going to be available on June 2nd, June 3rd. And so you can go on, again, you can go to Kindle, you can go to Barnes and Noble, you can get your digital copy there.
Did you narrate it, or did you have somebody do it for you?
That's the next piece. The next one is the Audible version.
That's
And
what
the
I want.
Audible,
It's easy for me.
that's okay. And the Audible version, I'm going to be going into studio and working on that with the help of some of my friends and family
Cool.
in Indiana, my sister-in-law and some other folks up there. But I'll be working on that this summer, and we're looking at a fall release for the Audible version.
Awesome. So it's going on my book list there. So now I talked about the beginning, kind of, I always say 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
Tell people where they can find you, and talk a little bit about what you're doing with your coaching and everything else, and give them some good information here.
Sure. So I'm a sales and business coach, and I really focus on the home services industry, plumbing, electrical, home, HVAC, heating and air, and, roofers, that kind of stuff. I really focus on that. Doesn't mean that I can't coach anybody else, but I really focus on helping small to medium businesses and business owners really that are trying to manage their sales team and they shouldn't be. And so I get to help them set up a sales process, or to help manage their sales team for a time and help them kind of develop the metrics and the key performance indicators, or KPIs. And so I do all that kind of stuff, as well as I'm also setting up a mentoring program right now for younger entrepreneurs that want some help and just getting maybe some weekly coaching or monthly coaching, and they just want to get put in the right direction, right? And so the best way to find me is coachchrisconsulting.com. And if you go to there, you can find out all my information. I have, the FAQ page where you can find out what does it mean to be coached by somebody, or how does that look, and all of that good stuff. And you'll find all my contact information there on the Contact Us page, where you can find me on all of social media, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, right? All of that stuff. And I do put out regular blogs. I have a blog that I do twice a month on my webpage, and I get opportunities like this to be on podcasts. And so I put those back out there for people to check out. So
Great.
I've actually done international podcasts, which is kind of cool. So
that's awesome. It's becoming a fun thing for me. I started out a little nervous when I started this kind of stuff, but actually, I've we've done starting to get a bunch of shows. I think it's really important thing. So we appreciate all your time today. You can find us on alumnidirect.com. And join your community centers for the different schools or organizations, whether it be, again, athletes, fraternities, sororities. And you could like us on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those different things. But it's a lot of fun, and we're really hoping to make a positive impact on a lot of lives. So thank you, everybody. Look out for the next show, and it's been great.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, you're welcome.